This video is going to be a 3-week review of the Nokta Makro. But first you need more schema. Schema is a snooty word used in education. It means prior knowledge. You just don't have enough schema. But I'm here to help. Back in the day I bought a bounty hunter. It had a nice run and it only cost 100. I raised some coins and I made some dough. When I found enough, I bought an AT Pro. Versatile submersible when you're on the go. Aqua Chigger swung it because it rhymed with bow. Cost 5 Benjamins, but I thirst for mo. That's because Merrill's a detecting connoisseur. Got the mid signals on land and water. But I want targets as deep as dinosaur. I didn't need mo, I wanted it though. I saved some coins cause I didn't wanna owe. Wanted something special, supernatural. Something Australian, a detecting miracle. You only live once, my collection's gonna grow. Gold is the goal if you swing like a pro.
So, did you buy another metal detector?
Why yes. Yes I did.
Pound in the ground when 16 rolled around. There was inflation in the dollar and the pound. So I bought an alien, something profound. A Minelab Safari that must weigh 20 pounds. I mastered ground balance, I knew my way around. My coil was concentric, in other words it's round. Man, that sucker could really pierce the ground. Dug my first colonials, I sure went to town. Plenty of rings, swinging beaches now. Dunk it underwater though, this Minelab would drown. So I went to White's when I did canals. Beach Hunter 300, Sparta is my town. Relics and jewelry, I only miss a crown. Hit the like button, don't press thumbs down. But I wasn't done yet, I own a macro now. Anfibio like Fabio, macro is the noun.
Yeah. And now, my 3-week review on the Nokta Makro Anfibio Multi. Yeah, no one can rhyme that. Even me. I'll get out of character soon, I promise. So now that we've established the required schema, that I'm a longtime metal detectorist who's used Bounty Hunter, Discovery 2200, Garrett AT Pro, Minelab Safari, White's Beach Hunter for years, and the Nokta Makro for just 3 weeks. Put that into context. I have years with the other detectors, very short time with the Nokta Makro. So when you form opinions, keep that in mind. So I created a chart with several categories for ratings. Remember that I could only judge a detector by the schema that I've built from using them over the years and within the context of each other, meaning each one of the detectors that I've used. So here's the criteria that I used. Ergonomics, battery, ability on deep targets, target separation, pinpointing, ease of use, use on beaches, use in parks, trashy soil, mineralized soil, and rocky mineralized beach. And I've got the detectors that I've used in the categories on the top. Bounty Hunter Discovery 2200, Garrett AT Pro, Minelab Safari, White's Beach Hunter, and we're going to rate the Nokta Makro Anfibio Multi together. Each one of the ratings is color-coded. Just remember that the brighter the green that it is, the better that it is, and the more red, the worse that it is. Green is good, red is bad. A 10 is the highest score that you could get in a category, a 0 is the lowest. So let's take a look at how I rated the detectors that I have used for years. And note that at the bottom, there's a totals column that puts all of these together. I guess you could use that to see which is the best detector that I've used. So first, let's look at the Bounty Hunter Discovery 2200. That was my first real detector. I did have a toy detector before that that had worse ratings than this. And again, this is my own scale, my own opinions. But basically, ergonomically, it was a nice, lightweight detector. It had decent battery, ease of use. It was very easy to use. It only had a few buttons. It had sensitivity. And the sensitivity on it, you had to use the very lowest. It could be the soil in New York or the combination of soil and trash. But basically, it was horrible on beaches. It was horrible in trashy soil, mineralized soil, rocky beaches. Good luck with that. So I gave it a 0 in that. Was easy to use and decent in parks if you had a lot of soil. So that's why I gave it a 5 there. Again, decent, but nothing to get excited about. Now the AT Pro I paid about $500 for compared to $100 on the Bounty Hunter. And it gives you a good value. In terms of being very, very good, ergonomically it was a nice lightweight detector. My arm would never get sore when I used it. And target separation, man, that thing, you could run through a park and it would give you target after target, and you'd sweep, you'd maybe see 3 or 4 different targets. So you really could see what was down there in the ground, and you'd hear specific beep beep with it when there's 2 targets that were close together. Target separation on the AT Pro is beyond its price range. Ease of use also, it gave you the bare essentials. It had a pinpointing button, it had sensitivity. It didn't have very many modes, but you would have to depend on the ground balancing in order to get to various modes. Mineralized soil, rocky mineralized beach, it was not ideal. Use on beaches in general. Perhaps I should have made this a little bit lower. But it was possible to detect. That's why I have it like that. It's a good detector, but it is, and it's all around. You can use it on beaches, but just don't expect the elite performance. All right, so now the Minelab Safari. The only area where it really, really lacked was ergonomics. Let's put it this way. I have one really, really diesel muscle left in my body. It is my right shoulder from swinging this thing for years. Other than that, this is the best detector that I've ever owned. It is very versatile. You could use it anywhere. And it was intuitive. It goes deep enough. I've gotten targets 11 inches, I think was the deepest that I ever got with it. But it was just really heavy. That's the only area that I would take off from that. So the final one before we go to the Nokta Makro is the White's Beach Hunter 300. And I don't know if this is fairly rated. Reason why, pinpointing. It's a pulse induction machine, so there's no pinpointing. Use in parks, I've barely tried a few times, but it's meant for the beach. It is a specialist machine. It's a machine that you use on the beach, and it's not really meant for parks. So perhaps I should do a separate, an average, and eliminate the 5s and the 4 here. So Nokta Makro in ergonomics, it is one of the lighter machines that I've ever swung, perhaps up there with the Garrett AT Pro, which is feather light, and the Bounty Hunter Discovery 2200. I would have to give that a 9. And my reason for giving it a 9 instead of the 10 is has to do with how the keypad was set up on top. I think that they put the pinpoint button on the wrong side. That's just an opinion thing. It might not even be ergonomics, but sometimes I feel my fingers really having to stretch, whereas other detectors that was not the case. Still, that could be said for any of these, so I give it a solid 9. Battery, I have to give it a 10, just because it is a built-in rechargeable battery. And the other ones, I've used rechargeable batteries with, but it's been external and then I put it in. I like the battery idea on this, and it gets you an amazing amount of time, something like 19 hours before you have to charge again. So this is by far the Nokta Makro by far has the best battery out of all of the detectors that I've used. So ability on deep targets is what sets the Nokta Makro apart. I pulled a 16-inch target, and I'm going to put a link to the video up in the corner here so that you can see for yourselves. Now, I'll say one thing though, there's a huge difference in its performance at the beach versus in parks. In parks, it is a ridiculously amazing machine. At the beach, maybe it's because I'm still going through my learning curve, but I was getting all sorts of false signals, and in terms of pulling deep signals, it is definitely not better than my specialized beach machine, which is the White's 300. So it's a totally different animal at the beach, and there's actually some consistency in that. I've looked for answers online, and there were other experts that were having the same problem that I am at the beach. Still, ability on deep targets, no machine that I'm aware of goes deeper than the Makro. I have to give it a 10. One other quick point on deep targets. My Minelab Safari, I put the oversized coil, it's called the Wild Orange Thing coil on it, and it's much bigger than the coil on the Makro. Still, the one that's pulling the deeper targets is the Makro. Target separation, I go to trashy parks all the time, and it's really good with that. Again, you have the ability to program it so that you can lower the gain if you are in an area that you know has a lot of trash. You can also change the operating frequency of the machine so that you can pick up super small targets or bigger targets. It's more customizable than any of the other machines that I have. But since we're talking about target separation here, if you put it in a trashy field and you start swinging, you'll be able to hear all of the different pings and see all of the different numbers so that you can focus on one of them and try to get it to repeat over one. I would give this a 9. Pinpointing, Nokta Makro. It has a very accurate pinpointer. I like that when you push the pinpointer, it tells you how far, it gives you an accurate read, how far the coil is from the target, and you could really hear where the edges of the signal are by moving the coil around. So it gives you that more information whether it is a big target, a small target. Other detectors do that though. What I didn't like about the pinpointing, and perhaps I just have to accept the fact that it's a global detector, its natural mode was centimeters, and it's not very easy to switch it over to inches. It's a very deep detector, both in depth of how far it goes down, but also how deep you have to know the product in order to do that. So I'm going to give it a 8 on that as a score. And that's higher than any of the other detectors that I have. But there's been falses, especially when it comes to beaches. I'll get to the beach section later, but it's very good in the parks, satisfactory at beaches, but satisfactory doesn't get you a 10. Ease of use. Look, if you are a OCD person that needs to know everything that there is to know about the detector and enjoy reading manuals, this is the detector for you. It's got all sorts of hidden stuff. For instance, there's an extra deep mode that if you press the select button twice, if you're in the right mode, it gets you to the super deep mode, extended depth, I believe they call it. In order to change from centimeters to inches, you have to. There was something that I had to do at the beginning. I got very lost, and I wouldn't have known about the extended depth if I didn't do my due diligence and my research. So, this is a good machine, don't get me wrong. It's one that you really have to research in order to use. And ease of use, I have 9s straight across the board. It has a mode that you could use that's pretty easy, but for ease of use, I'm going to give it a 6, because you really have to be diligent about reading the manuals. It's not the intuitive instruction. But if you're somebody who's thorough, that's not going to be a problem for you. Use on beaches. There is a specific beach mode for the Nokta Makro. I have tried it, and I have gotten all sorts of false signals. So what do you do when it falses? First, you start turning down the gain. I've done that. I still got falsing. What do you do next? You ground balance. I've done that too. I still got falsing. So what do you do after that? You try switching the frequencies that it operates on. And I've tried 5, I've tried 14, and I've tried the high one, which I believe is 21 or 19. I've tried the different operating frequencies on it. And it's still, it's not, you can pull stuff on the beach, don't get me wrong, but it's not the White's Beach Hunter. The White's Beach Hunter I have really come to fully appreciate because of using this machine. And this is where the connoisseur in me comes out. Because it's, I mean, granted I've used the White's Beach Hunter for a longer time, but I did not struggle as early and as often as I did with the Nokta Makro. So I'm only going to give use on beaches a 5. And you will see exactly what I mean in upcoming videos. In parks, I'm going to keep this one very short. It is elite in parks. It is the best I have ever used in parks. Hands down, it is a 10. You don't pull 16-inch signals very easily on any detector. If I got an oversized coil in this thing, I could detect China from New York. Let's put it that way. It is elite. So use in trashy soil, it was very good in that. That is very similar to what I would have to say on target separation, because that's a condition where you would need good target separation. I mean, unless it is a bunch of coins, you get a coin spill. But I would say that this is a 10 as well. It is really, really good in trashy soil. Mineralized soil, I'm going to give it a 10 also. I forgot to mention this in trashy soil, but I brought this detector to Dead Horse Bay, and it did a heck of a lot better than any of my other detectors. Now, Dead Horse Bay, I'll link a video to it. It's a dump site, and there's so much iron on site, I was not able to use my other detectors there. This, it was a lot better. It still was a struggle. It's iron and, all sorts of, it's mimicked mineralization, if you will. Perhaps I should have said this under trashy soil, but fully mineralized, I'm going to have to wait until I go to the Adirondacks. I'm going to speculate a little bit right now. I'm going to say 10. Just in terms of the whole spectrum of other detectors that I've used, this was by far the best at Dead Horse Bay. So mineralized beach soil. Basically, the north shore of Long Island is a lot different than the south shore of Long Island. And one of the things that my Minelab Safari struggled with was the north shore of Long Island. It kind of made me feel like how the Nokta operates on the sandy South Shore. It really is mediocre in sand. But there's so many different ways that you could configure it that I think in time I might figure out these. And I sense that the mineralization of the North Shore is not going to be a problem. So I'm going to give this a 9 right now. I already have a detector in my stable that's really good at that right now, and that's the Beach Hunter. But I'm going to give it a 9. So this was an interesting exercise for me. It got me thinking about which detector to use where. One, the Bounty Hunter Discovery, that's retired. Even the AT Pro, it's versatile, but I don't know if it's worth carrying with me at this point. It's nice to lend out to a friend. I'm probably not going to use it. I could think of the other detectors, like how a manager in baseball uses relief pitchers. You know how they have righty-lefty matchups and lefty-lefty? Let's put it this way. I have a beach specialist that I plan on using the White's Beach Hunter 300 at beaches. That has proven to me to be elite. I've been using the Nokta at the beaches. It seems forced there. And I've done my research. That seems to be the verdict amongst other experts too. I would not call it an elite beach machine by any means. In parks, on the other hand, that is where it thrives. If you have dirt, you could go down 16 inches in dirt, even with slight mineralization. It even has a bar on the side that shows you what the mineralization of the dirt is. So it's a sophisticated machine. It definitely is I'm glad that I purchased it. I'm going to keep the Minelab Safari with me too, but that has become my backup detector in parks. My go-to detector in parks is the Nokta Makro, so it was worth the investment to me, even if it was bested at the beach. Anyway, I'm curious what you have to say, or if you have any questions. If you ask 1,000 questions, I'm going to give you 1,000 answers in the comments. So please let me know. And you could even wrap your comment. I mean, if we want to stick to a theme for this video. Anyway, thanks for watching.